there's always, I feel like when we get requested of something, it's like we feel like we're letting someone down if we say no. And I like
Okay.
adding that in there. Like it's okay if it is okay for them to say no, and it should be. I can't think of many situations where it's not. So
If it's a request,
yeah,
there has to be Hmm. room
there
for a
has to
no.
be.
Otherwise, it's a
Yeah,
demand.
right.
Welcome to the Do You Feel Heard podcast, a production of Helping the Herd. Helping the Herd is committed to empowering individuals to liberate themselves from the patterns that keep them from creating their ideal life. If you like this podcast, visit helpingtheherd.com to find resources and personalized coaching to empower you to be your best self. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Thanks for
Good
being here
morning.
this morning. Good to see you both. We've got a fun one this morning. We're going to be talking about request making, which sounds pretty simple on the surface level, but yeah, as we get into this, we will dig into exactly how difficult it can be, how complicated and dynamic it can be to make a request, and also being on the receiving end of requests and how it might feel to receive certain requests. So, yeah,
Sounds good.
Derek, why don't you start us off since this was your, I don't know, idea. I was trying to
Looks
think of
like
a unique word for idea. I couldn't come up with
this
anything.
was my quest
Oh,
that
yeah.
I've assigned us to
Mhm.
look into requests.
Oh, okay,
We're,
request. We haven't done this quest before, so I don't know if we're requesting.
we're not. It's more regarding questions, like in
Uh-huh.
requests.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely no, no. Thanks for being open to it. I think it's a topic that I want to understand better. That I see come up a lot in mine and other relationships. And what was I thinking about with it? So, one is why is it sometimes hard to ask for what we want? Why is it difficult to ask for what we want or what we need? Either one of those words, depending on where you're at. Sometimes there are things you need, sometimes things that you want. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between the two. So I think that's kind of where I want to start is why it seems like it should be so simple to me sometimes. I'm like, wait, I need or want something, and I'm not going to answer. I like to open up, but I'm going to say, why can't I ask for what I want? Why
Mm-hmm.
am I not asking for the thing that I want or need? Let's start it there and see what you guys think.
Yeah, I like it. And I like this format too of like these prompts of like, okay, here's one specific dynamic of a request, making one, receiving one, having one come up and deciphering whether or not it's a want or a need, and then like fielding it from there. I really like that this morning. Dawson, why don't you jump in? I'm always talking. Why don't you share a
Yeah,
little bit about, yeah.
sounds good. Yeah, I mean, I definitely know what you're saying because sometimes it is hard to make a request. Like it feels uncomfortable, or like you're almost doing something like wrong for asking what you want. And I also do find myself wondering why that is because it doesn't feel right to, feel guilty for wanting something or asking for it. So I think that it's just like some shame involved for some reason, like we feel shame for like asking directly for what we want. Like maybe it feels selfish or, yeah, like I think when we're younger, like as a kid, sometimes it's hard to ask for what you want because adults sometimes will like shut it down, like be like, no, you need to like, don't bother me with that right now. I'm busy or whatever. So maybe we're, you know, like in a way we learn to not ask for what we want and try to like get it ourselves. That's what comes to mind for me. I mean, obviously, I do think it gets older, like easier as we get older. Like it's definitely gotten easier for me, but I have those feelings come up too about like, I don't know. I don't really want to ask for this. Maybe I should just try to do it myself first. That's what comes up for me.
Is it clear why that comes up for you?
Not really. Maybe just like embarrassment sometimes, like needing help. Sometimes feel like maybe doesn't feel good. Um, I would say that's the main thing.
Maybe a little bit of shame
Yeah,
for needing help, some shoulding, some you
yeah,
shouldn't need help. You should be able to do this on your own. You
hundred
shouldn't have to
percent.
ask someone. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely resonate with that. Yeah, I think that that's pretty common from what I've experienced with clients and my own personal experiences of it being difficult to ask for what you want or need because of how someone else is going to receive that request.
Hmm.
Whether they're going to maybe gaslight you and so you don't need that, or that's not what you want. What you want is this, or what you need is this. So maybe a little bit of hesitation to even, because it's vulnerable. It's vulnerable to say, hey, I need something from someone else. I'm
Hmm.
not, you know, it's not necessarily not able to do it on my own, but it would be supportive if I had someone assist me with, this need or this want. And so you're putting yourself out there, and then they can either, crush you while you're out there, or they can support you,
Hmm.
and it's kind of scary because you don't know
Yeah.
maybe how they're going to receive that or how they're going to respond to it. So I definitely resonate with that. And see if there's anything else coming up for why it's hard to ask for what we want or need. I think another thing could be that sometimes it's like internally it can be hard to know, like Derek was saying, whether it's a want, whether it's a need. Do you really want it? Do you really need
Hmm.
it? Is it an impulse? Is it something that's like a response to something else? Oh, well, I want this now, but I maybe really don't want it. So I think there can be some layers of that too, of it can be difficult to know if it's something you actually want or need versus it being more impulsive or reactive to some sort of stimulus that's making you, you know, react and want this thing in reaction, but maybe you don't actually want it, right? Like, so maybe it's even
Yeah.
like, I want to respond this way to the way to what something said to me, but do you really want to do that, or is it reactive? And so I think those are some things popping up in my head as far as the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
I,
also think that it's almost like a two-level thing for me. Like first, like you said, you have to identify if it's something you actually want. And then once I do, it's like, okay, now do I want it bad enough to ask someone for it? You
Mm,
know, like that's it's almost like I have to decipher that too. Because for some reason it has to be like a bigger want sometimes for me to be vulnerable, like you said.
hmm
yeah. What comes to mind first is, yeah, rejection. Like, why don't we ask for what we want? At some point, we probably asked for something and we were told no. Probably, as we come back to a lot of common theme on this podcast around childhood, and, probably started very young, or at least some part of the roots go down to very young. We asked for something, we were told no. It feels bad to be rejected, it feels bad to be vulnerable. And so, all right, we're just going to be self sufficient and I'll never ask for anything again ever. That sounds healthy. I'll just do everything on my own. Makes sense.
Sounds like an island.
Sounds like an island. Hey, no man is an island. But what about women? We never talk about them. Can women be islands? I think we need
We
more
never talk
representation.
about them.
No man is an island.
The dudes only podcast here. We won't even discuss the subject of women here.
I meant more the English language, but fair enough. And then outside of the rejection, there's the other side of it too, of getting not getting it the way we wanted it. Someone tries to fulfill and we're let down, we're disappointed, not
Mm,
because they rejected, but they tried and they failed. Maybe they tried their best. Maybe they were really, and you still were, your need was not met, your want was not met. You were disappointed, and then you're like left with that situation of either telling someone that they disappointed you, not always easy, feeling, burying it inside, being like, oh no, that was great, thanks, no, that was a great massage where
mm.
you just like punched me in the back a few times, and
While you were watching
thanks.
TV, not
Yeah,
really present. Yeah.
exactly. So you're like, what? So there's a few of those, and then I really liked what you guys said about the just if it feels selfish to ask. I think that's a deep, weird mental contortion I can get myself into of, yeah, like not respecting that I have the right to ask for things, to want things, to need things. Like that has to go down from a young age. Maybe at some point you asked a parent or someone for something, or a teacher, and they were overwhelmed, or they weren't able to do that, and whether they meant to or not, their reaction made you feel like, oh yeah, asking is bad. Asking makes me a bother. I would never want to bother my caregiver. I was raised by a single mother who was always working multiple jobs or night shifts and stuff. So I'm going to assume, I don't have great memories of that age, but I'm going to assume there was some of that, deep below. And I bet most people have some version of that. No matter how wonderful your parents are, at some point they were at the end of their rope. At some point they were sleep deprived or something, and you might have picked up on that pattern. So I really like some of those, and I just think that's interesting. The rejection, no, and being let down. Even if someone tries, that's a lot of things to kind of navigate. And so internally we're weighing this thing. Is it even worth it, or should I just figure out how to get it on my own? I don't
Yeah,
want to deal with all that.
I had another one that popped up too, which is like assuming somebody else's capacity to help, like denying yourself the opportunity to ask because you're assuming that they're going to say no anyway because they've had a rough day, or maybe they're the ones that are asking for support in some way, which means, well, now I can't ask for the support I need because they're needing support, and they couldn't possibly have the capacity to support me when they're needing something from me. And so that's another one that I see popping up is like, oh, well, I know that they're working a lot. I know that they're doing all these things. And so I need to stifle my requests or my wants or my needs because that's supporting them. But also it's reaching into their domain and deciding for them that they're not available, which when we dive into the wheel of consent, like that's a lot of like martyrdom. That's a lot of sacrifice for no one's receiving that sacrifice. You're choosing to suffer for the benefit of someone else, but you're not giving them the opportunity to say whether or not they want that or whether that's what really needs to happen in that situation. You're just choosing, well, I'll just suffer. I'll go it alone. I'll walk this path. All like you're saying, like I don't, I won't need anybody. I won't ask for anything. I'll just go without because, I know they don't have capacity. I assume they don't have capacity because of this, this, and this. But even just the act of asking, even if, like you could preface it, right? We're getting into the next one of like, how do you ask for it? But like, you can
We'll get there.
give them the opportunity and speak to, hey, I have a story, or I believe, or I perceive that you have a lot going on. And so it's okay that you might not have capacity, but this is still a want I have. This is still a need that I have, right? Giving them the opportunity to speak their truth rather than deciding for them that they don't have the space to help you.
That's right. I'm so glad you brought that one up because that leads to the other component of it that I know I struggle with. This idea that I have to be available for everyone for them to be able to ask me requests. Some part of me, being a healthcare provider, being the only son of a single mom, at some point this all came together where I was like, I have to be Superman and people have to know that if they ask for me, I'm always going to be resourced and be able to help them. For some reason I have that, and that means some part of my brain kind of got locked up and was like, yeah, that means I never ask for help. And otherwise they'll think I'm in the positions where I won't be able to help them. And so that is something I've struggled with and I found a lot of help with by this old story. I might have mentioned on the pod before of Benjamin Franklin saying, like, if you move into a neighborhood, move into a new place, the best thing to do is to go ask your neighbor for help or to borrow something right away. Because what you do there is you establish a relationship and where you help each other. And it really resonated with me because the opposite. You go over to your neighbor's house, you knock on the door. Hey, just so you know, I'm here if you need anything, come ask for anything. How often do you hear that? And how often do you believe it? How often do you believe when someone says, yeah, no, I'm always around? Maybe they seem really genuine, but all the stuff we talked about starts kicking in. Maybe they're not going to be available, though. Maybe they're having a hard time. I think I heard them fighting the other day over at that house. They can't be bothered. But there's a way to bypass that instead of just offering your assistance. If you establish the relationship, and that's where we're getting the relationship of we are people that ask each other for help. How do you actually establish that? You kind of need to be the vulnerable one and ask first. And you ask for a cup of sugar, then they have an action and a memory of, oh yeah, I kind of helped that person out one time. Like they'd probably be happy to help me, or they might enjoy helping me, or they might want that. That really stuck with me. I heard that a few years ago, and I think about it kind of often. And it's because it's a growth zone for me. It's not something I'm comfortable with, but I try. I try now to be like, oh, wow, and it's almost like a Jedi mind trick. If I go and ask someone for help, maybe they're more likely to ask me for help. And that's one of my deep desires, is to be of service to others. So if I frame it that way, I can actually make myself be uncomfortable, ask for something, and hope that's going to tell them that they're okay asking me for something. Does that make sense? Mind trick.
Yeah, I
Yeah, it
like
makes
it.
sense.
I think it also opens the door for like they owe me one, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think that's where my mind went when like,
Yeah.
oh, well, somebody came over and asked me for this, well, like they owe me a favor, or there's like a reciprocity out of balance here. I did something for them, so now there's a a level of they are now going to be indebted energetically to some degree to then restore the balance and now help me because I helped them, which is like a biological law within humans is. And they've done, I don't think I've talked about it on the podcast, but I know I've talked to each of you about this, but like they've done studies to show that if you like are a nonprofit or an organization that's trying to get donations and you just ask for donations, you may get, X amount. But if you give something to somebody and then you ask for a donation, the number is insane. It's like 40 or 60% higher if
Mm.
you give something first and then ask for something, because of that law of reciprocity that is just wired into the human biology, the way we think. And so that's where my mind went when you talked about going and asking for help, because now they are going to feel like you can help them for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's kind of like, the story you gave, both parties might be feeling that same thing of like, oh, well, I don't want to ask because I don't know them or we don't have that established yet. So just being the one who just goes out and does it first. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it can be scary to do that, but I think it's a good idea because like, yeah, like you guys both said, once you do it, it kind of creates that dynamic of like, okay, well, I helped them. I should be able to ask for help too. It makes it fair. So yeah, I like that story, or that analogy.
Yeah. And
Good
it's
story,
good.
Derek.
Thank you. I love that you brought up that indebtedness idea and that reciprocity, because I do think that's one of the barriers sometimes. It's not something I see in myself, but who knows, could be a blind spot. But I've seen people, especially with neighbor relationships, like, nah, I don't want to ask them something. Then they'll ask me for something.
Mm.
And I mean, there can be a selfishness that comes from that where you're like, nah, I'm going to be that island. I don't want anyone bothering me. And I'm not saying that's a wrong way to live, but it's not the way I want to live my life. In Buddhism, they talk about the six paramitas, these like qualities to foster, and one of those is generosity. And I really have just seen so many times in my life where a generous mindset just leads to this abundance that comes up. You normally don't end up just giving everything away and then dying alone on your island. If you do offer help or offer something, often you get back more than you give. And I've seen it enough that I don't think that's just like a hokey Hallmark card anymore. Like, I really think that's true. So I hate seeing that poverty mindset of, nah, I'm not going to ask for anything. People will pester me and they'll ask for all my stuff. And it just doesn't seem to work that way. So I really think it's good to put yourself a little bit in someone else's debt, so you open that relationship, and most of the time it ends up working out better than you would think.
Yeah, last nugget of thought on that is like we as humans are also like we're tribal, we're like
Mm-hmm.
group oriented. We used to be in very large groups of people in large villages, and without the collective support of everyone within that village, that would not you wouldn't survive, you wouldn't be successful. And your ability to thrive as a tribe really like hinged on your ability to work together and collaborate and support each other, and everyone has different strengths and weaknesses and skill sets, and like you know to expect you to be able to do everything on your own, it's I don't know, I don't think it's very I don't know, maybe realistic.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good a good time to switch to how does it feel to receive a request. Oh,
Mm.
you mentioned that one. Could you guys share the other side? What are some of your reactions you get when you receive a request as opposed to when you give it. And everything we've talked about, vulnerability and fear and reciprocity. What's it feel like when someone does come and ask you for something?
I think for me, honestly, it kind of just depends on who it is. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't as much share the desire to like help like everyone, like be available for everyone. I will admit I certainly am not available for everyone. So to me, it kind of depends on like who it is, I guess. And also like the mood I'm in. Like if it's someone I don't know, but like I'm in a good mood, like yeah, I'll maybe I'll help them out. But it just depends. Like if it's someone who I like really care about and like really like want to help, then yeah, I'm happy. Not only like will I do it, but I'm usually like happy to like, oh, they need me. I feel needed. I feel wanted. This feels good, and I can do something that will like fulfill this need for them. But yeah, I can't say that I feel that way like always. Sometimes I won't lie. Sometimes it does feel like a bother, and I'm like, "Ugh, I just don't. I don't want to do this. So yeah,
And
it depends.
Dawson admitting that he's human over here. That's some real vulnerability. You're
Yep,
not
it's hard.
always happy to.
You have limits? You have
Yep, I
No.
limits? What the
definitely
hell,
do.
man?
Terrible,
Gosh. Should I call the
terrible.
police now or wait till we're done
Yeah, I think
recording?
we should
Like,
definitely report
should we?
him.
Just
We'll
do it
track
Got
him
now.
him.
down.
Yeah.
We need the number of the hotline. Um, yeah, I mean, of course, affirming you, Dawson, like, it's good to have those limits, and I think it would be far less healthy for you to say there's never a time that you're not available for a request, or that it's always welcomed when somebody's asking you for something. I don't think that's healthy. That's extreme people pleasing, and I think would be a detriment to everyone, including the person that you're supporting, because you wouldn't be doing it with a full heart. For me, it's similar. I mean, to the way when we talk about domain boundaries and limits, and how limits are constantly changing depending on who's making the request, how they make the request, what time of day is it, have I eaten, how much sleep did I get the day before. Like, there's so many factors that go into whether or not I'm available for something, anything. And so I think, with all of that being said, I like being asked for support, because I do enjoy supporting people. I enjoy helping, being helpful. Like if I'm at the grocery store and some like old woman or some short person's like, "Hey, can you reach that?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I can reach that. Here you go. Have a great day." Like, I know I just helped that. It took very little from me to do that, and it was supportive. And now they have what they need, and they can move along, and I did a good deed. Or like turtles, for instance. I stopped for turtles. I don't care if you're in a hurry. I don't care what kind of car you're in. None of that matters to me. I'm pulling over, I'm putting my hazards on, and I'm running out in the street. And I'm going to get that turtle, and you can wait. Because that turtle doesn't need to die because you need to get to Starbucks real quick. Like, that's not how that's going to work. So anyway, I stopped for turtles. I love helping turtles. It's the most fulfilling thing every spring whenever they are out and
Wow.
crossing the roads. I stop every time if I see a turtle.
That's
And so
good.
there's something in me, and as Derek knows, and Dawson, as well, like, I like to serve. I am very much in a phase of my life where I feel like service is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm committed to serving in whatever capacity I can. And so whether I'm serving turtles, or I'm serving short people at the grocery store, or serving my partner when they ask for more serious support, something that would take a lot more from me. I enjoy it. When my son is doing homeschool and he's like, "Hey, I need help with this," I'm like, "Hell yes, yes, I definitely want to help you. Let's move through this together," because it feels good to be of service, deep inside of me. It's like a very fulfilling, like soul fulfilling act. But again, it all also depends on how you send, how that request is delivered to me. So that's a big piece of
Yeah.
it, which we'll get to later.
Yeah. And where you're at for it. Oof. All right. Do you already have a bumper sticker that says "I stop for turtles"? Like, this vehicle stops at railroad crossings. This vehicle stops for altars.
I want to create my own, because I've been looking at them, and the ones that I see I don't like. And I also don't like stickers. I like the magnets better than
Totally.
stickers, because
Yeah.
I don't want to destroy the paint on my truck, or like start to scrape all that crap off. So I haven't found a good magnet, but we're working on it. We do have, side note, Sarah and I have been working on a couple, and we have created one it says, "Please don't take my driving personally." And I'm really excited to
That's
release
really good.
that one, because whether you're driving slow and the person behind you is like, hurry the fuck up, like, well, please don't take it personally. It's not about you. I'm just driving at the speed that I want to drive at. Or if I'm driving extremely fast and you're going slow and I'm trying to get around you, which for me is more realistic, don't take that. It's not about you, dude. I'm just trying to get somewhere quicker than you're trying to get to. So don't take it personally. Like, it's not about you. And so anyway, the braking for turtles is definitely going to be next on the list, though.
Get that
Nice.
on the store. I am ready. Oh, man. I want all these stickers. And also, I want more turtles. I mean, that's a Pittsburgh problem, I guess. We do not have enough turtles for me to stop for. I don't have my opportunity to serve in that way, and
Yeah.
I'm a little salty about it.
Yeah, same. There's no turtles over here crossing the road in Arizona, so
We
I'm
don't have
also a little
anything crossing the road except
yeah,
escaped prisoners from prison facilities and maybe
tumbleweeds.
some people coming from the south.
Yep.
I stopped for escaped prisoner.
Yeah,
I need that magnet.
that'd be good.
It's my oh man. Well, love those. I love that you guys kind of highlighted both the different sides of this receiving a request. It can feel great and wonderful, and I feel helpful and needed. Especially, I'm part of a tribe or a community, and I recognize that I have strengths like being able to reach up to the top shelf that someone might not, and maybe they'd be able to help me with something that they're stronger at. And they, we all have. It kind of makes it real that oh yeah, we not everyone has every skill and quality needed by society, and we can help each other there. But then also it can feel like an imposition. It can feel some other ways. And one thing that I really thought of, I guess this happens especially in healthcare. People come to me with problems that I can't help with. There's a lot of those in primary care, especially. I'm like that first line, You come to me with your back pain that's been there for 9.5 years and you've tried all this stuff. There's a good chance I'm not the guy who's going to be able to really move the needle. Maybe I can, maybe, but you probably tried a lot. I might be able to refer you to someone who will, but I'm going to often in that with, I'm sorry, I'm not able to really fix anything today. So there's some guilt, there's some feelings of not enough that can come up. And the other one I really wanted to touch on is defensiveness. What about this? I didn't hear anyone mention this. I'm thinking more about in a relationship. I ask my partner for something. Sometimes I get a defensive response because they're taking it as an attack or an affront that they haven't been doing something and they're doing something wrong. And I met with defensiveness, and that can take me off. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. But I see that actually somewhat commonly. Someone immediately makes an assumption, I guess is where it starts, that, oh, they're not asking for something. They're trying to tell me I've been wrong and I've been doing something wrong. That's the only reason they're asking. And then defensiveness. Well, I would do that, but I can't because this. Yeah, what do you think about defensiveness as a reaction to receiving a request? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
definitely share my
Yeah.
own personal. Thanks for bringing it up, because actually, we're you and I are meeting later in the week to talk about some things. For those who don't know, we hold space for each other, for things that we have going on in our lives, and what a great support resource to collaborate in that way with each other. But that's actually something that's been coming up for me, is this defensiveness around my partner asks for support in some way, right? Maybe it's needing to hear something from me regularly, or support in this one capacity, and I receive that as, I have a hard time not hearing, well, you're not doing enough, I need you to do more. And it's like, well, I'm doing all of these. I can list all of these things that I do that are supportive. And of course, I'm quite good at communicating. And so I'm going to be able to, articulate very clearly all the things that I do and how I'm checking the box. And yet at the same time, they're saying, well, I still need this. Like, all these things you're saying are great. Yes, you do support me in this way. Yes, that's supportive. Those are all great love languages. But this is the one I'm not hearing, or at least not hearing enough. I'd like to hear it more. and it's really difficult for me to not hear like, well, you're not doing enough, you need to do even more than you're doing. And when I feel like I'm maybe at my capacity for support, I'm doing everything that I can, and I'm devoting the amount of hours that I'm available to devote to supporting my partner, because there's only so many hours and I have to devote hours to different things. When I feel like I'm giving everything I can to that person and they're asking for more, I get very defensive and feel very like almost like defeated. Like, well, fuck, like, I guess I just can't make you happy. I guess I can't do enough to satisfy you or fill your cup. And I get very defensive and almost like pick apart the request of like, okay, well, what exactly do you, okay, well, I've done that. I do that. And like, what about that? Okay, well, I do that too. And it's like, okay, but I'm not really hearing them, because there's still something there that they're wanting from me. There's still something that they're asking for, and I'm not able to get to it, to get to that problem, or that, not necessarily a problem, but get to that request through all of that defensiveness. So yeah, great prompt. Thanks for bringing that part up. What about you, Dawson?
Yeah, that was a really good shout out, because I didn't think about that, but it's a really good one because it definitely happens. Like I've had the same experience as you, Ian, where like something will get brought up and immediately it's like I going into like defense mode instead of just listening. Like, okay, clearly they wouldn't bring this up if it wasn't something that they were wanting, but instead it's like, oh, I gotta defend myself here and explain what I've, why it's wrong. It's I feel like I don't do that often, but when I do, I catch myself being like, wow, I sound like really annoying right now. Like they're just asking something of me. So, yeah, and I've been on the other end of it too, like where I'll mention something and then they take it as like, oh, so I'm not like, I've had this happen with like multiple people where they're like, oh, well, I'm not doing a good enough job, I guess, or something like that. And it's like, well, I didn't say that, just making like a request. So yeah, that's a tough one to deal with, and it's definitely, I think, happens pretty commonly.
Yeah, that nihilism, right? That's one thing that I'll experience sometimes too. Is like, oh, well, I guess I'm just a piece of shit. I guess
Yeah.
I'm just the worst person ever. I guess you should just roll me off a cliff because I didn't put the cups the way that you wanted it. So fuck everything, like that. Like I've been on the receiving end of that kind of a reaction to the defensiveness. Like that's the extreme end of just like, well, I guess I can't do anything right. I guess I'll just go and, disappear. I'll go crawl into a cave and you'll never hear from me again. And you don't have to ask for me to put the lid on the ketchup. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's normally something so small, but the overwhelm is so big. The reaction and the defensiveness is so big that it just, it feels like they can't do anything right. And then they project that feeling onto the situation as nihilism.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're like picking up on the feelings around it more than like the actual request. That way, once you're going underneath the surface of their request, and it's not necessarily making assumptions, maybe some of them, but also they're picking up on whatever the feelings are, and that activates this whole slew of directions it could go that make it muddier.
Yeah, and nobody's feeling heard. Which is, our mission here to make sure that people feel heard. And so when you're making a request and the other person is making it about them and their defensiveness and their nihilism, the other person is not feeling heard at all in their request of, okay, well, I need this though. Like I hear all these things that you're saying, but I don't feel like you're hearing that I need this, because now it's all about you. Now it's all about these things coming up in you, and I'm still over here needing this thing, but now I have to soothe you and your reaction and your defensiveness and your nihilism. I have to soothe that now because you're having this big reaction. So now it's about you and it's no longer about me, and I don't feel heard.
Yeah. I'm seeing like a dance, kind of the dance of partnership and relationship here, where even if you're the one asking and you have a need, that doesn't shut off the other person's needs and what they need and what they want as well. Both are present, and you have to kind of work with both. Even if you're the asker, the requester at that time, it doesn't seem to serve us unless we can just completely. I don't know if it's right to just shut down my needs for a second and be the fulfiller of your needs, and then hope that you'll shut down your needs and be the fulfiller of mine. Can we dance and, acknowledge someone's needs at the same time as we are asking for what we need and work together to it. That becomes more complicated than the simple, transactional, yep, my turn, I need this. Thanks. I assume you will not take it personally, will have no needs while you fulfill mine, and then I will reciprocate at a later date. That's not how it works. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And with that analogy of a dance, I mean, typically when you're dancing, one person's leading, right? And you establish that, whether it's like you're doing the waltz, or you're doing like there's this method called contact beyond contact. Eric, I think you've participated in that with me. A mutual friend of ours, facilitates that type of dancing at yoga festivals and retreats and things like that. But even in that kind of a thing, one person is leading and the other person is following, and it's a give and a take. And when we apply that to a conversation, especially one where someone is making a request, which is a very vulnerable thing, or can be a vulnerable thing, I think that's a great opportunity to create a container, where we establish those things. All right, what are we here to do? Who's leading? Who's the one that's asking for something? Okay, the other person, what needs do they have? What do we need to observe in this dance that is fielding this request? What does everybody need, so that way we can be successful and move through it without all of this external, static almost of like, well, you didn't say it the right way, or I'm needing this, or blah, 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 like all these different things that get in the way of the actual thing that we're here to talk about, which is this person's need, and how do we make sure that that need is met? And if it's not by you, that's fine, but not because you're reactive or, be defensive to their request. Like, that's not the reason to not meet their need. If there's a real reason you can't meet their need, let's talk about that. Not the reaction to the request that gets in the way of them getting their need met. So I think, a container, an intentional, call it what you want, but an intentional conversation where you set out, okay, you're going to ask me for something, and I'm going to hear that need, and then we're going to talk about that need, and here's what I need from you in order to like receive it.
Yeah. I really like that. It's getting into how to ask for what we need. I'm happy to move over to there next, and I'd love to circle probably near the end about more how do we know what we want, because that is more of a deeper exploration. But yeah, when you're talking about, so how do we actually ask if this is a dance, I just love that point about preparation, whether it's a container or just setting some structure, even if that's asking if you're available, right? Something as simple as that. Hey, are you available for me to ask for something right now? Something that just gets the mind starting to turn away from our normal reactive, impulsive kind of mind state to, intention. What's going on here? Or all the way to an entire, a container, a little structure. Like, can we take this amount of time to talk about something? That already, I think, is just like a master move of taking some responsibility for what structures need to be in place for us to hear each other right now. I think that skips so much of the time. It's just not part of our culture to be so intentional often. It's not part of our relationships often. But if you can start to get that, just a little bit of structure, it allows so much freedom to come from it. I think about that dichotomy all the time, structure and freedom. A little bit of structure, we're doing the waltz, is needed to freely dance and do a waltz. It's not that you're then stuck to one or two steps, but it's like we started a shared game, a shared container, a shared understanding, and from there, so much more can come. You have to take that little step, that little initiative.
Dawson,
Yeah, I like that. I like that. When it comes to making a request for me, I mean, I'm just trying to think about the way I typically do it. Like, I tend to normally say something like, "Are you available to do blank?" or "Would you be able to do blank?" or "Do you mind blank?" Those are like my three go-tos I usually do. Um, and then depending on the person, a lot of times, like I always feel the need to throw in a little no pressure type thing. Like I always,
Always.
almost always do that. I'm like no pressure though, or like no rush, or get to it when you can. Like I'm not. I always feel the need to like brace it with that almost
Oh
because
yeah.
of how vulnerable it is to ask.
Yep.
And yeah,
Dawson, I gotta say, I will be bleeding out on the street, and I would be like, could you give me some bandages? No pressure. When you get a chance, no, it's fine. Finish that call. No,
yeah,
I swear, I don't know the
I
last
know,
time I made
dude.
a request without a no pressure.
Dude, I know. I almost like I don't even like that I do that because I'm like, why do I always have to do this every time? Like it'll be the smallest thing too, and I have to make sure they know, hey, I'm not telling you to do this right now.
Oh,
Just whatever you can.
yeah.
It's funny. So yeah, that's like my go-to. I mean, if it's like with my partner, I don't tend to I don't add that in as much because she kind of like knows, like she normally like knows that I'm not saying like do this right now, but with other people, I'm always like kind of bracing things because it's hard to ask for help or make a request. So yeah, that's how I tend to do it.
That's right, and that's another good example of that. Setting up norms or setting up structure. It doesn't always work this way. It needs some maintenance. But what if in your relationship at some point you'd sat down and said, "Hey, whenever we ask for requests, can we make like an underlying, shared agreement that unless stated otherwise, it means no pressure. It means if you're available, and if I, I'm just spitballing here, but you could say it more eloquently, but something like that. And if I really need something right away, I will say that. But
Mm.
otherwise, let's have a shared understanding that my requests are, invitational, and that then you would be able to bypass that if you both agreed on it and maybe reminded each other about that every once in a while, and it could really free up. But how much of us are taking that time and the maintenance to make that shared agreement something that's just commonplace?
I also wonder how effective that would actually be because Dawson inserting there's no pressure that really has less to do with his partner and more to do with him and him wanting to make sure that he's communicating this thing because for whatever reason he needs to put that disclaimer in. And so I wonder, I mean, how many times have you said the no pressure and to the same person over and over and yet you still have that impulse to still say it because I think it soothes something more in you than it does for them. Like it's part of you wanting to make sure your message is clear, not so much that they would feel the pressure anyway. It's you're saying it so that you are checking whatever box because of whatever trauma you have around your requests, and so like I don't know if that would be effective.
I think it's both. It's definitely partially or maybe mostly for me, like to soothe me, but also I do have it. I do know sometimes like for me what I'm thinking of is like work. Like when I'm at work, I have to make requests. Like I just have to. And a lot of times I have to do it when someone is already doing something. Otherwise, it will just never happen. So I want them to know like I'm not asking you to stop what you're doing, but I have to mention this so that you do it at some point. You know.
Hmm.
Um, so that's kind of like what I'm thinking of. But when it comes to like personal relationships, I agree that I think it is more for like me to not feel like I'm burdening them, and that's why I have to say like no pressure or don't take your time. So yeah,
Yeah. Great points, both about when what we say is for us more than for the other person. That's just a great note to think about. And then Dawson, I just love that you brought up the work context. We talk about relationships all the time, and one thing that I think is easy to maybe it's obvious, but maybe it's easy to lose track of is when we talk about personal relationships, especially intimate relationships, like we talk about often. Most of the principles are the same or very applicable to family relationships, friendships, work relationships, maybe even how often do you have to request stuff at work? In most collaborative environments, you're doing that all the time. Like this idea of how do we ask for something we need. I mean, you could do a whole work related one for 3 hours, and that would be really helpful for an office. That'd be huge. So I just love that you brought in these different contexts. A lot of these principles work in these different contexts with just a little bit of tweaking.
Mm.
Yeah. So on these how to ask, a few of the things we've already brought up is that people can get defensive. How do you guys preface your question, or how would you frame it to try to help avoid the defensiveness trap?
Mm, I don't know. You want to go first on this one? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I can speak to yeah, approaches that I find or I believe to kind of circumvent the potential defensiveness or reactivity to a request. I think, um, yeah, like Dawson, like you said, typically beginning with the "Are you available?" Getting consent, getting consent for the request first before the actual request. So, are you available to hear this thing that I'm about to ask of you? Because maybe they're not. And if you don't get that consent and they're unavailable to even hear what you have to say, there's a high likelihood that whatever you're asking of them is going to activate them. It's going to trigger them. It's going to trigger something in them, whether it's a shutdown or an explosive thing. That's really going to depend on their communication style. But if you don't get consent to make your request, I think you're already kind of you're starting with one less leg to stand on, I guess. You don't have as much stability in that communication dynamic at that time if you're not getting their consent. And then I think the next big piece is just making sure that you're acknowledging that like there's no obligation, there's no like expectation. Like this is just something that I'm asking of you, and no is totally okay. There's plenty of space here for a no. And because oftentimes it's presented with expectations or assumptions. So I think, yeah, leaving space for a no and making sure they know that there's space for a no, depending on the level of like intimacy in that relationship. Maybe they know that, maybe they don't. And so if it's not a relationship that's very well established and you're confident they know there's room for a no because you've practiced it and that's just a part of your dynamic, I think it's helpful to bring it in. Say it's okay to say no. It's okay to say no, but I have this request and are you available to, do this thing? So
Yeah,
those are the first off the
I
top of
really
my head.
like the leaving space for a no. I think that's a really important one because like it can feel like I mean, for me, sometimes if something is requested of me, it might feel like there's already an expectation that I'm gonna say yes, and then if I'm saying no, I'm almost doing something wrong. Like if I'm not available for someone's request, I might be doing something wrong, even though it shouldn't be that way. So I like the idea of like, and I do that too. Like I'll remind the person I'm talking to, like, hey, if you can't do this, it's okay. I had that happen to me the other day actually at work too. Like I asked someone something and I was like, if you can't, it's okay. And he felt so guilty for saying no for the smallest thing. I was like, bro, like, it's okay. I got it. I just, you have this equipment that I don't. So I just was asking if you have like a second of time, but like, or not a second time, but like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's good. And he felt so guilty about it. Like there's always, I feel like when we get requested of something, it's like, we feel like we're letting someone down if we say no. And I like adding that in there. Like it's okay if it is okay for them to say no, and it should be. I can't think of many situations where it's not.
If it's a
So
request,
yeah,
there has to be room
there
for a
has to
no.
be.
Otherwise, it's a
Yeah,
Yeah.
demand.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And we shouldn't be asking if it's if it's like you're
yeah,
in the operating room or something like scalpel stat. You're not like,
If
yeah,
can
you're
I
available.
please get a scalpel? No pressure. The
hmm,
patient will die, but if you're busy,
yeah,
that's great. I really like this concept of normalizing no. I think that really
hmm,
hits to some we haven't really touched on yet. That's like underneath all of these issues with requests is this idea, this assumption, this just kind of a feeling that's around that like anything other than a yes, 10 bags full is going to be disappointing and I'm a bad person. And like you said, can really activate that guilt. Wow. Yeah. Whatever you can do to set the stage from are you available already, like taking a little pressure off, time pressure. Is this a good time? Okay. And then, well, if you say no, it's okay. Depending on the person, having someone believe that could be a real struggle. It seems like we almost need a more societal change in no is normal, no is
hmm,
good. It's okay to, and you have an exercise that you'll share sometimes about it's okay to want. that I was thinking is
It's
really
not
good for
okay to
this.
want. It's good to want.
It's good to want. Sorry, it's even better. It's even better than okay. It's good to want. Exactly.
We
So
can walk
like,
through that. We can briefly touch on that. I actually had that written down on my notes of things
nice.
to explore today on this podcast. It is not even 11 a.m.
We're going all day,
Uh,
boys. We're going
It's
all
not
day.
even
it is
9 a.m.
time anyway. Uh, Arizona doesn't play. They don't participate
We don't
in
do that nonsense.
the facade of changing time to suit us and what we want time to be. So anyway, uh, this evening I wanted to talk about. It's called the Wanting Game, and this is a resource from Dr. Betty Martin and the School of Consent. She has created the concept of the wheel of consent, and I've worked with her organization on multiple occasions, and it's a beautiful resource. So I'll explain it really briefly. So the idea here is normalizing that wants are something that everyone has. They come up in it's biological. It's a human thing for us to want things. We have desires, and that's a good thing. It's good to have desires. It's good to have wants. But having a want doesn't mean that anyone is obligated to do anything about it. It's good to have a want, and also it's good for someone to not be available to do something about that want. And sometimes the want, there isn't even anything to be done about it. Sometimes I have a want. I want this thing, but I don't actually want anyone to do something. Like, for instance, maybe I want something sweet right now. I'm not going to actually eat that because that wouldn't be a responsible thing for me to do is go and eat a pie right now, right? But I want it, and it's good to want things. Not every want has to be satisfied by you or by someone else. And so on that level, it's good to want. And that's the practice is taking turns for a specified amount of time. The way I learned it was 5-minute intervals. So for 5 minutes, we set the clock for 5 minutes. I share all the things that I want. And after each want that I share, whoever I'm doing this exercise with will respond with, it's good to want. And that's it. And then I keep going, and then I keep going. And then the 5 minutes is up, and then the other person goes, and I hear all of their wants, and I tell them it's good to want. And at the end of it, no one has to do anything about anything. We're just hearing the other person, their wants, and normalizing that there doesn't have to be anything done about it. There's no obligation to do something because you want something. And just that I think is a great exercise that helps you leave room for all sorts of things. A no, and also a like, well, that's a crazy thing to want. It's good to want it. That's great, but like, and typically I go from the like, I want the room to be a little bit warmer. I want my back to not be in pain in this area. I want people to stop killing each other all over the world. Like, all of these things are great things to want. You're not going to be able to necessarily do something about all of your wants, but it's still good to want it. And so that's the game very briefly described, and leaving room for people to not do anything at all about your want, I think, is a really healthy practice, and kind of helps prevent those tensions coming from somebody sharing something that they want.
Yeah. Wow. It's a powerful practice. That really addresses these roots of what we were talking about selflessness and, it's selfish to want or to ask. Wow. It's surprising to me how much reprogramming is needed to be like a mature, healthy adult because of what we go through in childhood, different situations, school, work, relationship. We put ourselves in all these different roles where there's these different expectations, requirements, pitfalls. And so, wow, to something as simple as it's good to want, yeah, that can be life-changing.
I
It
really
it
like
has been
that.
for me.
I really like that practice a lot. Like for me, what I think of is like if you take like the average couple and one of them just you don't preface it at all. One of them just starts listing all their wants like out of nowhere. They're just like, I want this, this, this. The other person in the relationship is probably going to be like, oh
Right.
my God, I have to do so much.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
they're gonna be
Exactly.
like almost like making a list like, man, I got to do all these things. But like when you preface it with the game, it's like, no, it's not. just because someone wants something doesn't mean that you have to fulfill that. Like we are all our own person. Like it doesn't mean that you have to fill every single want that the person has. So I really like the game a lot. I think it's
That's
cool.
so good. I
Yeah.
feel that I really get that way with my partner. And as soon as I, hear a desire without any request from her, I will start, brainstorming how to provide this. And then
Hmm.
I get overwhelmed and I get frustrated. And whenever we put it like this, it's so silly. She didn't ask. She didn't ask. She didn't, tell me it was a want. And there's nothing
Hmm.
wrong with want. It's good to want. Mm.
Yeah, when you factor in all the people pleasing and all of the childhood traumas and programming and all these experiences of being, shamed for not doing the thing that mom wanted you to do or dad wanted you to do or whatever, you factor all of these things in, and then you play out that scenario Dawson's talking about where the partner is just listing all the things that they want. It's like, well, I have to fix the fact that this isn't being fulfilled for them. I'm responsible for making them happy or giving them what they want because of all of these things in my life up and like leading up to meeting this person, right? And most of the time it's not about that person. It's about things that happened earlier in your life that have kind of programmed or conditioned you to receive those requests in a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah, and in motivational interviewing, process that's used to help people, especially with behavior change, especially in healthcare settings, but in others, one thing they really talk about is keeping the writing reflex in check. There's this writing reflex. We hear something and we just immediately, it's very much like the fixing mentality that we can talk about a lot in this work, and that there's just this kind of, I don't know if it's innately human or if it depends on your role, but there's this desire to fix, to right everything that's wrong. And while that comes from a good place, it comes from a loving place, a serving place, it can get out of control pretty quickly and be counterproductive. So this seems like a great exercise, not just for the person who's saying it's good to want, but for the person who's listening to not try to satisfy all of these wants immediately and not feel that pressure, so that they're more able to have space for those and be there and support. And it would be so cool if there was another version of this, or if we practice maybe one for saying no. It's
Hmm.
good to say no. It's good to say no. I think that exercise in the right setting could be really helpful too, especially when there's people pleasing tendencies and people really feel like no is just not available to them. It's good to say no. It's good to say no.
Yeah, that's actually an aspect of the 3 minute game
Mm-hmm.
that I teach and that was taught to me again through the School of Consent, where when you make that request of will you do this or may I do that, like forcing a no. So the other person, the
That's right.
receiver of the request, has to say no, even if they are available. You say no so that the other person can receive that no and do something. Like how do I hear that no? For instance, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, the 3 minute game, it's a practice where you ask two questions. One is, will you do this thing for me? And then, can I do this thing to you? Right? And then you switch with the other person, and both of you doing that practice puts you in all four quadrants of the wheel of consent. And anyway, in this exercise, when you're asking somebody something, for instance, like, may I touch you in this certain way? And they say no. Like, that's, for a lot of people, rejection.
Hmm.
That's,
Mm-hmm.
it could bring up a lot of things. And so hearing that no can be really, healing, because it is okay to, I mean, it normalizes that people have limits and they're not always going to be available for what you want at that time. And likewise, when you're like, hey, will you do this thing to me? Will you engage me in this way? And they say no, again, same thing. That, like, oh, well, they don't want to touch me, or all these different stories pop up in your head. And it's really a great opportunity to observe all of the inner workings and how busy the mind can get in justifying or coming up with the worst possible scenario. So again, that's a great segue. Like, when the mind doesn't know the answer to something, it's going to fill in the gap. and oftentimes with the worst case scenario. So if you ask your partner, will you engage me in this way? And they say no, you don't know why unless they've said why. And so your mind is like, well, they freaking clearly hate me, or they find me repulsive, or, whatever, that you could fill in all these gaps. And the mind will fill in those gaps. And so normalizing it kind of helps take the sting away, which helps minimize the hyperactivity that comes from, oh, I got no, so I feel rejected, I feel all these things. It kind of helps soften that so that it's not so startling to hear that no. And so, but yeah, it's a great practice, and I'm sure there's other ways too to practice the no, but that's the one that I'm most familiar with and that I was taught.
Yeah.
I think there should be another game I mean a 3 minute game is great, but I think there should also be a game similar to the um it's good to want. It would be good if there was one like one where you just say no to a bunch of stuff. Because honestly, like I genuinely would say that learning how to say no to things was one of the best things that happened in my life. Like
Mm.
freeing things. Like because I used to say yes to literally everything, and then I'd be in situations where I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this thing that I
Yeah.
absolutely have no desire to do? So I just started saying no to stuff. Like I just like someone would invite me out. No. Like like
Mm.
if I don't want to do it, I've gotten really good at saying no, and it's so helpful to realize that you don't have to always be available and do things you don't want to do. So I always like tell people that because I have friends who will talk to me about I don't know, like situations they're in, and they're like, "Yeah, I really don't want to do this, but I have to." I'm like, "Why? Why do you have to? Like, what
Mm.
would happen if you just said no? Literally nothing. The person might be upset, maybe, and guess what? They'll probably get over it pretty quickly. Like it's generally not that big of a deal, but it feels like a huge deal to say no. It feels like you're failing them or something, but it's normally not that deep.
It's like the opposite of that Jim Carrey movie, The No Man,
That's
Yeah.
what I was
instead of the
thinking.
Yes
Yeah.
Man, like just saying no to everything. But that would be a great remedy to people pleasing. I
Mhm.
mean, the immersion therapy of like, oh, I'm a chronic people pleaser and I have to say no to everybody all the
Mhm.
time. Like they probably feel like they would explode as they
Yep.
begin to do that work. But yeah, that would be an interesting exercise for sure.
Yeah. Does anyone have Jim Carrey's number? I would like to talk to him about the sequel. No, man. We need balance, right? I
Yeah.
Mhm.
think I love that movie. Yes, man. I think it's great because
Mhm.
sometimes we do get in a no rut, and we're not saying yes to things that we do want or need, and we don't. Maybe we don't know why. Maybe we don't know we need those things. But that's just one side of it. Obviously, there's just this balance, and we need the no's as well, so we can enjoy the yeses, and so the
Mhm.
yeses can be hell yeses, and
The nose can
really,
be
why
hell
not?
nose.
They can be hell no's. Yeah, with these, I hear a lot of attachment. I think attachment is just one of those core things that happens that lead to complications in our relationships. If we make a request and we're attached to the response, if no isn't
Mm.
okay for us, people pick up on that. Or at least we somehow are putting that out there. People know, even if you say no pressure, but you're like, edge of your seat, can you do this thing for me? No pressure, but I need this. And people can feel the attachment. And so,
Mhm.
when back to how to ask, I think as with most things, it starts with ourselves. And if we can check our own attachment and make sure we're coming in from a place of being okay with a no or a yes, framing it in that way, doing whatever we need to not be attached to the answer, I think that does a lot of work for the other person. They can still project their stuff on, but we can control what's in our control, which is our level of attachment to the outcome, and try to come in as non-attached as we can. And like you guys are saying, setting the stage, asking if you're available, presenting as best you can that there isn't an expectation. And yeah, I think that's a good way to avoid defensiveness. And a few other things I was thinking of would just be affirming as best you can if it is something that is affirmable. Like let's say it's something that someone has already made efforts on, and that they might take a request for that thing. Let's say it's picking up clothes in the bedroom. Hey, can you pick up your clothes in the bedroom? I have so many things to do. Immediate defense, but what if we say, hey, I've noticed that you've been keeping, these rooms really tidy, and no pressure here, but we noticed that the bedroom has a lot of clothes around. Could you pick those up sometime? If we affirm first, that might help. It's kind of like the compliment sandwich thing, if you've heard about that more in business. Whenever you have feedback to give someone, give them a compliment, then give them the feedback, the criticism, and then another compliment. And it can seem a little pedantic sometimes, maybe, but I think it's also just real that we want affirmation. We want to do good. We want to feel like we're doing right. And so there's nothing wrong with adding an affirmation into and doing your best, again, to not be attached to whatever the outcome is after you ask your request.
Yeah, I want to tie in this experience that I had recently, but I'm going to apply it to your analogy. So when we're talking about how do we ask for what we want, how do we make this request, and leaving space for a no, the way that you ask your question may or may not leave space for a no. And so, for instance, the way that you phrased it was like, can you, pick these things up around the room? There's room for a no there, right? They could be like, no, not right now, or no, I'm not ever picking these clothes up. I mean, like, they could. There's room for a no. Yeah. But if you instead use the phrasing, "Are you going to pick these clothes up off the floor?" Like, there's such like. There's so much more in that phrasing that isn't in can you or will you or are you available for this? Are you going to do this? Like, you say no to that. Well, then, like, there's such a, I feel like, a context of like expectation and obligation and like, what do you mean you're not going to if you say no, right? Like, and so there's a bunch of different other ways that you could poorly communicate a request. But I bring that up because, one, it's something specific that happened to me recently. Somebody made their request was, "Are you going to do this?" And I was like, immediately just like, whoa, activated. And I'm like, that didn't feel like a request. That was more like confirming something that we had already agreed to, and we have not talked about this before. And so I felt like there was,
right.
Right,
there's like a rightness, right? Like,
right.
Like, this is what normal good people do, is pick up clothes. Are you going to pick up the clothes?
Right.
Like a normal good person?
Right. No, exactly. And so, like, when you're making your requests to people, being very mindful of it being okay for there to be a no. Because I feel like if you ask somebody, "Are you going to do this?" and they say no, there's not really room truly for a no. They could say no, but there's going to be upset, or there's expectation in the "are you going to do something" versus "will you" or "can you" or "are you available to." And so I just wanted to bring that into this conversation for anyone listening who maybe has either had trouble making requests or their requests being received by other people, or if you've had issues with the way people are requesting to you. That might be what is going on, is the way it's being phrased is not leaving room for the no. Even if inside of you, maybe you have space for the no, but if you're phrasing it in a way where they can't say no, you're not really giving them like the respect of their autonomy and what's in their domain, and they're being able to say no without there being some sort of a, negative consequence on the other end of it.
That's right. It's funny how so many of the 4 agreements just come back again and again and again in every situation. I hear be impeccable with your speech there, noticing that, how we phrase something so important. You could also tie in always trying your best, because it takes a little bit of effort and some trying to phrase things and not just reactively spout the first words that come to your mind. There's effort there. And then, of course, just not taking it personally and not making it personal. You need to not take it personally, whatever they say, but you also don't make it personal to start with. Don't make it a moralizing, "Are you going to do the thing that good people do?" And then not making assumptions again, that other thing of just being curious and open. And Sometimes that might mean asking a question. This one's a little more fraught because it could seem like it's implied, but asking a question like, is there something that has been keeping you from getting to this? Is there something I could help with? Is there, let's not make assumptions that they're a bad person or they don't care about you and that's why they didn't do it. Let's say that's more a few steps down after you've made a request and it hasn't been there. Hey, is anything going on? I remember asking about this. How much more, open might someone be to someone asking for, a check-in on something you requested versus when are you going to do that thing that is pissing me off so much, huh?
Right, or even in the moment when they give the no, don't assume why there's a no. Be curious, ask questions, get the clarity around why they're not available or why they're not interested in whatever your request is. Don't make assumptions about that either.
Absolutely. And the other big framework I wanted to just toss in here as well is from good old Marshall Rosenberg, the nonviolent communication. They talk specifically about request really well. And I like that framework of, I call it OFNR. I haven't thought of a better way, but it's how I go through it of observation.
I use it. I've been describing it the same way. So I think that's just how we're gonna, as a team, that's how we're describing it and introducing it to people. I think it's pretty straightforward, and I like a good acronym.
Yeah, I need something. There's a lot of words out there, Got to keep them in order somehow.
So many words.
There's a lot of words. I've heard over 1,000. Can you believe that?
No.
There's over 1,000
Wow.
words.
I don't believe that.
That's a
Wild.
lot.
Yeah, maybe fake news, but I think at least. So out of those, 4 of them are, so OFNR, observations, what you observe. And this is a way of getting down to what you're feeling, needing, and eventually being able to make a request. So there's the observation. I noticed the room is messy. Would be a good example. I've noticed the room, there's clothes everywhere. I've observed something. Underneath that observation, out of all the things I could observe, there's probably a feeling that was underneath that for why I observed that versus the floor is, no, I looked at the ceiling, the floor is messy or the ceiling is cracked. I noticed there was some feeling,
Why is there clothes up there?
Why are there clothes on the
floor
ceiling?
is filthy today. Good God, the floor is a mess.
And all the clothes are on the ceiling again. Get it together.
Look, Cat in the Hat movie? What is this?
It is. So why might I have noticed that? Maybe I have a feeling of chaos, stress, because why do I have a feeling of chaos and stress when I'm in a messy room? Maybe I have a need that's underneath that feeling for order. I do have this need. I have a need for order. I've noticed this again and again, or my mind starts to try to fix everything and correct things, and I get overwhelmed. So, wow, the reason I had this observation was because I was feeling a certain way, and because there was a need underneath that. And from there, we may be able to generate a request, that's the R, for how to change a situation in a way that might meet our need, that might help alleviate those feelings and change the way we're observing and interacting with the world. OFNR. I really like it. And when I think about how to ask a question, I think about thinking about that for ourselves, probably first, and trying to notice, and maybe if the other person's available, relating some of that so they have context for why. Why we're making a request. Mm-hmm. Here's some of how I'm feeling and needing, and maybe they're less likely to take that personally, especially if I affirmed first and set a context and asked if they're available. And then also trying to apply that to them with whatever their response is or whatever their situation is. Maybe I can, notice a feeling come up. Oh, maybe they're feeling defensive. Maybe they have a need for being affirmed, for being a good person. And whenever I start applying that framework, I just think it can kind of smooth over this whole request process. So, yeah, I just want to offer that. And if you guys have any thoughts on good old Rosenberg.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I present the OFNR process a little bit differently. One thing that I make sure that I emphasize is the observation step is done without evaluation. So we're not going to judge what's happening. We're not going to evaluate whether what's happening is good or bad. We're simply just observing. Oh, I notice, I acknowledge that this is what's happening. This is the experience that I'm having. And then getting into the feelings that are alive, the feelings that are coming up, and then Not that it's maybe connected to a need, that it is connected to a need, that feelings arise from unmet needs. And the reason that these feelings are coming up is because there's something that you're not getting. There's something that you're needing that isn't being satisfied. And so when you're able to then have that whole picture, this is happening. Feelings are coming up because I need this in this situation. Then you have the tools and the full picture to be able to formulate that request. And that request can be made to someone else, but also to yourself. You can make a request to you. Hey, can we can we meet our own need here? Can we go for a walk because I need sunlight because I've been stuck in stuck inside all day, or whatever it is. The request doesn't have to be made externally. It could be made to yourself. And then shameless plug for those people who have trouble understanding what feelings are going on inside of their body or what needs aren't being met.
I can't see it. Move it over a little bit.
Oh, sorry. The internal exploration cards. There's a deck of feelings and a deck of needs, and it's a really beautiful tool that can help you put a name and even a picture, because there's a beautifully hand-painted picture on each one of these cards that encompasses that feeling or that need. And so it really helps to create a vocabulary for feeling and for our needs, a way to communicate it when many of us have not had a lot of experience either being supported in having feelings or acknowledging that we have feelings and making that connection to an unmet need within us. So that's what I've got.
That's great. I was going to plug that as well. I mean, I think that's a perfect segue, to how do we know what we want or need? Is one of the things I was going to bring up is, sometimes we need that external help. Like those cards have helped me with that, because I can be miserable and not know why, and maybe the why doesn't matter, but I don't know how to get out of it. And that is very helpful sometimes. And then, like we talked about, applying that OFNR framework to ourselves. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one to know, and we're, like we've talked about today already, all these different things that get in the way of these natural processes of wanting, needing, requesting. And the other one that just came up to me was just a real simple one: meditation. As easy as that is, of slowing things down, taking time in silence, and tuning in to yourself and see what comes up. That's sometimes the hardest thing for me to do, especially if I'm activated or in a certain type of way. But often, one of those benefits of meditation, if you come in without trying to feel better, without trying to attach to an outcome and get there, and I'm going to meditate and I'm going to feel like $1,000,000. One thing that you can get when you come in with real non-attachment and curiosity is insight. It's one of the benefits. It's one of the benefits they don't talk about in the West as much around meditation. It's stress reduction, and you'll sleep better, and it's good for you. Sure, but one of the cool things is insight. You really do. I've seen this time and time again. Things click. Your mind that's been worrying around and trying to make all these connections gets a little break, 10 or 15 minutes meditation, and then clarity, insight, and clarity come from that. So, especially maybe paired with a deck, you meditate, you have some cards and stuff first, and you seed yourself with images and art that might help open up things, and then you meditate. It's a pretty good recipe for, figuring out what you might want, what you might need.
Dawson, you got anything on that?
I agree. It's that recipe is perfect.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would reemphasize is in the observation to do your best to avoid the evaluation, the judgments. This is wrong. This is bad. This is whatever. Like, that's not, just accept that it is. Can you accept and acknowledge that it is? And then from there you can do a lot. But if you get caught up and twisted in all of the feelings you have about, again, attachments. I wanted it to be this way, and it's not that way, and have all these feelings and all these judgments about the fact that it isn't the way that I would think it should be or the way that I want it to be. You're kind of missing the picture of what is happening. And once you pull all of that, these distractions and all of this mud away from this thing, you have a much clearer, picture of what's happening. And from there, you can be honest about what feelings are coming up and what needs aren't being met. But if you're really focused on the way you wanted something to be and all the feelings you have about it not being the way that you want, that's a whole different, path that you're going to go down as you explore that. And so, yeah, that's just, my clients struggle. A lot of my clients struggle with that piece, just observing what is and not being so attached to the way you want it to be or the way you think it should be. The shame and the guilt and there's so many different things that get in the way of really processing things because of how you wanted something to be.
Yeah, such a good emphasis there. The observing without evaluating. And I forget to make this connection. I mean, that's what meditation is. That's
right, exactly.
The way I teach mindfulness meditation. It's so simple. It's you sit, you find a posture, you place your attention on your breath or another anchor. Just gives you something to keep coming back to. And then you notice whatever you notice, and especially thoughts, without judgment. You notice without judgment, and you return back to your breath. And I think that is the secret sauce. I think that's why you're emphasizing it. It's that, as soon as you allow judgment and feed judgment and evaluation, then you're letting those stories run off, and then you're meditating on the stories, and you're focusing and giving strength to the stories. And it's easier said than done. If you can find a little space of non-judgment, a little place of what's there, no evaluation. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Can we not judge for 10 minutes? Let's try it out. Insight, clarity can come because you stop giving the stories all the strength. Great emphasis. And I'm going to be sure to include that more in my OF and Ring, adding that E in there somewhere.
Yeah, I want to affirm that too of... it's not easy. None of this is easy. Like I affirm my clients, and whenever I do workshops and whatever, like none of this is easy. No one is claiming that this is an easy path or an easy process. I equate it to learning a new language. It's not easy to do that. You've been communicating or observing your reality in a certain way for however many years you've been alive, for as long as you probably can remember. So much of this is, integrated into your being at a very young age, based on what's modeled for you, the environment that you're in. You're learning how to move through the world at a very young age, and you're still carrying those programs. And so to do something differently, like it'd be like trying to I've walked on my feet my whole life. Well, I'm gonna start walking on my hands everywhere I go. Good luck. That's gonna take a long time to not struggle with that. It's going to be very difficult to put shoes on your hands and gloves on your feet and walk around as if that's just how you're going to function all of a sudden, because you realize how unhealthy it is to walk on your feet, and somebody has convinced you it's healthier to walk on your hands. Making that shift is going to be very difficult. Similarly to, I've always communicated in this way, I've always been reactive, or I've always been very judgmental in how I perceive my experience, and now all of a sudden, because some dudes on a podcast said so, I'm just going to do it differently. Like, that's not, it's going to be difficult. You're going to mess up. You're not going to get it right all the time, but your commitment and your persistence and your consistency, if you just keep doing it and you keep focusing on it and you notice it and you don't judge that either. I didn't do it that time. I'm not a terrible person. I didn't fail. It's not bad. I noticed that. Okay, cool. I'm still got work to do. Like, that's really the thing, that the way that I look at it when I slip up in my communication, or if I'm defensive or reactive or something. It's like, man, I still got work to do. All right, let's regain focus. Let's bring our attention back to the present moment, and let's do our very best in each moment and be less autonomic with the way that we're moving through the world, and be more intentional with the way that we're interacting.
That's right. I love that. I think that's kind of the last thing I'll say on this topic is, it is hard work. Appreciate and enjoy the successes on the path. Whenever you do spend a little time cultivating that non-judgment and crafting a good request next time and being non-attached, and you get what you want, celebrate it. Reprogram. We need to, put a little bit of work, just like we have to, remind ourselves that it's good to want and it's good to say no. When you do finally do it, when you ask the request and your partner does the thing you wanted and you feel better afterwards, celebrate it, acknowledge it, and enjoy. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a reason why you do the hard things. And yeah, I'm excited for the next better request that I ask that gets somewhere, and I'm not going to attach to the stumbling blocks along the way. It's just part of it.
Yeah, I agree. Celebrate the wins. I completely agree. Celebrate them when you got them. Be grateful for the positives. Otherwise, you'll get stuck in a really dark place of everything needs to be fixed. This isn't good enough. I need to do this. I need to do that. But like, celebrate those times where you achieve the thing you set out to do. It's a very important part of growth.
Yeah.
Dawson, you've been quiet. You got anything?
No, you guys have been, nailing it. But yeah, I agree. Like, the celebrating small wins is important. I even I should do it more often, but I used to do this thing where I'd like anytime I get like a small win, I like write it write it in my journal, and I can look back on it and be like, dang, I did all these things. Like, good reminders. So I got to get back into doing that. Thanks for the reminder.
You're welcome. Yeah, I couldn't hear you though. I can't hear shoulds. I'm sorry. I'm not. My mind doesn't work. Did you?
You should do it more often. Is that right? So you're wrong for not doing it more often, Dawson. Is that what you're saying? Because that's what we're hearing over here.
Yep.
It actually breaks my brain when I'm sorry. Like that
It's
was a
so
form of
activating.
violence against me. Yeah.
It's so active. When I hear it, I'm like, oh,
It's
my
like-
jarring.
I was wondering,
Yeah,
like,
it's so
what
big.
did I say that was so wrong?
I saw Ian's go up and then I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it too.
Every time I hear it, I'm like looking around, especially if like Derek's in on a call or something and someone says should. Like, I don't know that he can see that my eyes are looking at his little box because I don't know if it translates with the camera. But every time I'm like, did he catch that? Did he catch that should? I heard that should.
I think I almost want to not correct it just because it was funny.
Yeah, no, don't correct it.
To witness
You're
that.
not. You're not. It's okay for you to have said should. It's not that you should not say should. But I notice it.
Yeah,
I notice
it's
it.
funny.
I still say should every once in a while as well. Sometimes it's hard. Like, there are times where I don't have another word to use
Yeah,
when I'm talking about like the best practice that somebody could be doing. I think sometimes is, I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to find an alternative, and I'll like get stuck in my head. I'm like, hold on, I'm looking for a way to not say should here, so just bear with me, because impulsively I want to say like, oh well, is it like when I'm trying to think of a good example, but like,
It would behoove you.
yeah, when I'm filling up my gas tank, do I use diesel or unleaded? It's like, well, if you don't have a diesel, you should use unleaded. But like, you know what I mean? Like, it's still applicable. I think it would be wrong to put diesel in your vehicle if you don't have a diesel vehicle.
What if you're trying to destroy your vehicle?
Yeah, insurance
maybe it's an
fraud.
insurance
Yeah,
thing,
if you're
so-
trying to do insurance fraud, then
Yeah.
you should do.
You normally have to get a little lengthier, If you would like your machine to run
Right.
and work as a car would, it would behoove you to, and that's why
It would be best.
a
Yeah.
thousand plus words in the English language. Let's use as many as we can.
Plus, there's more than 1,000.
1,000 or more, maybe one or two. Like, so let's just keep trying. Not that we should keep trying, but let's just do it for fun.
Well, you all should have a great day after this podcast, and should communicate very well after all of this communication about it. Yeah, I appreciate you both. I think that's a great place to pause. I think we should stop here, and we should stop with this pun and leaning so heavily on the word should. But yeah,
You
love
can't
you
stop
both.
yourself.
I know I can't, but I should.
You
I should
shouldn't stop
I can't. Love you both. Thank you both for a very beautiful conversation. I love how we can turn one very simple concept of making a request into an hour and a half long conversation that is like fruitful, though. Like, I genuinely believe like we had a very meaningful and helpful conversation, and hopefully those listening also find benefit and value in it. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Got a lot from it.
Yeah, me too. Have a good one,
Until
guys.
next time.
It was real.
This has been the Do You Feel Heard podcast. If you're interested in resources that will help you move through conflict, you can go to doyoufeelheard.com, where we have tools for individuals and couples.